Yes, good afternoon everybody. Welcome, family, colleagues, partners, friends of Robert Baars. It's all about you, Robert, today. My name is Nick de Boer. I'm Director of Research on Van Hal Ladenstein of the University of Applied Sciences. And my role today is only chairman, and better said, timekeeper. Robert and his team make a very full program with a lot of knowledge. So my role as chairman isn't big. I will be the timekeeper. We have in the next steps in the program in 40 minutes around the world, and we will take that time, but 40 minutes around the world is very short. An inauguration of a professor of a University of Applied Sciences is more than a special moment. It is also the step to the future, the next steps of the dairy campus, the next steps of Van Hal Ladenstein. So it is a big step for us to be here with us all. Robert will make the step to a professor of our University of Applied Sciences. He was always a leader. He had a lot of, he was a leader on knowledge, but also on education, but also in the connection with other countries. And now he has got a role where he could combine all that three things together. In the function of in the job of Professor Climate Smart Dairy Value Chain. Today we will see if his plan is good enough, that Robert is good enough. The finish is close, but we aren't there. So we will have a big program. The professorship is a cooperation of Van Hal Ladenstein with the Dairy Campus, where we are today. We are very proud on the cooperation with the Dairy Campus, and this cooperation with the Dairy Campus is still more than 10 years. And we have the next steps, the next 4 years. We have also a good program for the next 4 years. So we are proud what we are doing here together with the Dairy Campus, with the Word, and with Van Hal Ladenstein. It's a the cooperation of the Dairy Campus is also funded by SNN, a collaboration between the provinces in the north of the Netherlands. So I hope that we have a lot of good next projects in the professorship of Robert in the next few years to make the next steps for the Dairy Campus also. On 16 December we will also organize a big event with the Dairy Campus about climate change and dairy. That is an important focus area for the next few years. So Robert, his professorship for the future is in the focus area of the Dairy Campus. That is a lot of perspective for the future. When we see to items like nitrogen emission or vegetable or animal proteins, that are a lot of discussions where we could take hours of that, but also there are a lot of chances for beautiful research proposals for the future. So I think this is a step to the next future with a lot of perspective for Robert, for the Dairy Campus, for Van Hal, for us all. So the next steps we will do together a big, a short program in 40 minutes around the world. And we have speakers from Kenya, we have speakers from Great Britain, and he works for a German company. We have speakers from Friesland Campina. Yeah, it's totally global. And we have a speaker from GeoSet, a local sound with global perspective. So we now go for 40 minutes around the world and with 4 speakers, and the first speaker is Simon Ormondi, and he comes from Kenya, and he works on the Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization Alder. Then we go to that presentation. He is online, and like about 60 till 70 other people, they are also online, so the group is very big today.
No, he's not online yet.
We hebben een backup. Die
Ja,
gaan we nu
ja. It will be the backup.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Simon Omondi. I work for the Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization. And I'm also the secretary of the Pan-African Food, which is an alumni-led in Africa. Next. Next. It gives me great pleasure to be able to make some remarks on the inauguration of Professor Robert Bass, a man I consider as my mentor. Professor Robert Bass was my mentor in the master's class at the university, EPIS option in 2008. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Simon Omondi. I work for the Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization. And I'm also the secretary of the Pan-African Food, which is an alumni-led in Africa. Next. Next. It gives me great pleasure to be able to make some remarks on the inauguration of Professor Robert Bass, a man I consider as my mentor. Professor Robert Bass was my mentor in the master's class at the university, EPIS option in 2008, 2009. It is through your mentorship that upon returning in Kenya, I was inspired to go ahead and do my PhD degree in agribusiness management and trade. Next. Next. The Pan-African Food Systems Forum was launched in 2020 as an African networking of dairy alumni. And it was inaugurated to be able to address the very important gap of the lack of practical impact models on smallholder farms. Because for many years, a lot of investment have been made on smallholder farms in Africa. However, there's very little impact, and therefore, because of the Netherlands, we decided to come together for the purpose of teaming up with the other stakeholders to transform smallholder farms into agribusiness. So our mission is to promote alumni-led living labs in the dairy sector in Africa, which is a configuration of different stakeholders consisting of learning institutions, the private and the public sector, farmer organizations, and other actors in the dairy value chain. Next. The participating countries in the Pan-African Food Systems Forum are mainly drawn from East and Central Africa, alumni from Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Zimbabwe. And the membership consists of dairy alumni, Van Gaal Larester University, Agri-Pro-Focus, local knowledge institutions, and as before, public and private sector actors. Its management consists of 2 levels of management. We have the Apex management body, which is chaired by Van Gaal Larester University, as well as representatives from the 6 countries. And then the second level of management consists of country tables in different countries. Next. Next. Next slide. Next. The scope of activities that we are engaged in consists of thematic areas across the 6 country tables, addressing the very important subject of sustainable food systems using a multi-stakeholder approach. 3 thematic areas are being implemented in the 6 countries, and these include feed entrepreneurship learning centers with emphasis on women and youth farmers. These are a very important theme because smallholder dairy is faced with the greatest challenge of inadequate quantity and quality of feeds, and this is a common feature across all the farms. We believe that through the Living Lab multi-stakeholder configuration, Dutch trained alumni are able to demonstrate entrepreneurship skills, focusing on the very key people involved at farm level, who are the women and the youth. The second thematic area is the subject of inclusive climate smart dairy practices. This is a new area in the dairy sector, especially in Africa. As you all know, the dairy sector is a big contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, and therefore promotion of climate smart practices on our dairy farms through this platform will go a long way in reducing the negative impact of greenhouse gas emissions. The third cross-cutting thematic area is inclusive platforms for knowledge sharing and co-innovation. A platform that enables members of the configuration to be able to share knowledge, to be able to share new approaches, and to be able to co-create solutions to the key issues that pertain to the dairy sector. And therefore, with these 3 thematic areas, we welcome collaboration in this noble task of transforming the dairy sector in Africa from subsistence to. Thank you.
Always a backup. That's always the plan. And there was the backup. So that was quite good arranged. We will make the next step. We will go to Jeroen Elvers and backward dairy value chain integration also in Africa, in Nigeria. Also climate smart dairy value change is different here than in Africa. We have also heard from Armandi, also a focus on greenhouse gases. That is the same focus that we have here. I really like to hear what is a backward dairy value chain in Nigeria. So please help us in that way of thinking. Jeroen, for you the word.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Good afternoon. First of all, on behalf of Friesland Campina and the Center for Nigerian Dutch Dairy Development, congratulations, Robert. Of course. I'm very honored to talk with you about our dairy development programs in Nigeria. Within Friesland Campina, I'm responsible for dairy development and all our special milk streams, like On the Way to Planet Proof and organic. But Nigeria is actually the largest dairy development program that we're entering. I'm saying entering because we entered that already 10 years ago. 10 minutes, that's quite a challenge for Nigeria, a huge country. A country with 200 million people, growing to probably 400 million people in 2050. Within these 10 minutes of this presentation, this huge city of Lagos will grow with another 17 inhabitants. 17 inhabitants in 10 minutes just in this city, and is likely to be the largest city worldwide. A huge country with a lot of opportunities. Where should I point? Okay, yeah, I will. With a huge challenge, of course, also on food, if you look to this huge population. A beautiful country also. A lot of people know Nigeria based on not so good news. Boko Haram, kidnaps of children, etc. Actually, I spent a lot of time in Nigeria, and it's a beautiful country with beautiful people, with a very nice, beautiful culture. I call it actually a rough diamond if you look to the opportunities for Nigeria. Friesland Campina is already present in Nigeria for 60 years. We have about 1,000 colleagues there, a big factory. But also, as I mentioned, a lot of challenges on food production, dairy in particular, and as a nation as a whole. If you look to dairy in particular, and I'm not going to talk through all the items here on the list, they have a huge herd. 90% of the herd is used for meat production, and they have a very low dairy production. But dairy is actually very popular. That's why companies like us already import for many, many decades dairy to these countries. Actually, our big factory here in Leeuwarden has become big based on countries like Nigeria by exporting EVAP and milk powder. A huge list of challenges. So how to tackle this? Fast country, nomadic, agricultural model, very low productivity, security is a big issue, the climate is quite a challenge for dairy production, etc. High seasonal effects. In the high dry season, the production of dairy is about only 10% of the production that we need. That has also big constraints for the utilization. So we have developed a model, a very simple model. We call it the 10 building blocks for creating a sustainable dairy sector. Could be applicable for more countries than Nigeria. On the upstream side, smallholder centric. So basically, we find it very important for Nigeria and these type of countries not to take the route that, for example, China took, flying in millions of dairy cows and heifers, building these huge, vast farms, and then neglecting the fact that actually the backbone of Nigeria are these smallholders. Setting up an infrastructure, of course, for milk collection and milk processing, and of course the route to market. As we speak, we're building a factory in Drachten, a few kilometers from here. We call it a bonsai factory. It's a yogurt factory. We will do test runs in 3 weeks from today, and then this factory will be shipped to Nigeria. So actually, it's a mobile factory, and we're going to ship it to Nigeria, and it will be our first factory in the north. It's actually the middle belt of Nigeria, producing yogurt 100% based on local produced milk. I will get back to that later. In Nigeria, we have several value chains. We import a lot of dairy products to Nigeria, recombined quite often, and as you can see is that we're building up value chains in Nigeria based on local dairy production. We already do that for 10 years, mainly in the southwest. We collect milk from 9,000 Fulanis and small size, medium sized farms, and that is turned into also again mainly yogurt. And as I mentioned, we're setting up a value chain in the north. This is the model that we apply. So basically it's a hybrid model, focusing and investing in middle-sized, large-scale farms in combination with extension programs focusing on mainly Fulanis in this case, the nomadic model, collecting the milk from these both angles and then bringing it to our processing facilities on a sustainable manner. So if I just spoke about this little factory that we're building, this factory will be run 100% on green energy. So actually a combination of solar and wind. So we're building up dairy valleys like this one. This factory is just the first of hopefully many to come. And that basically supports the efforts and the vision of the Nigerian government, where they basically want to create backward integration. So basically become less dependent of the import of food in general and dairy. With that, of course, to tackle the forex issue of countries like Nigeria, but also on top of that, of course, to create employment and social stability within, and to create an agriculture that is the basis and a strong, stable foundation for the nation, Nigeria. These type of models help. As I said, we already have a presence, but actually we're going to accelerate in the southwest, in the middle belt, as well as in the north. For that, we use a model which we call the Golden Triangle. Kees in the back knows this very well. Actually, Kees was involved in the establishment, Kees de Koning, of the Sino Dutch Dairy Development Center 9 years ago, where basically the essence is a strong cooperation between the public sector, the private sector, and knowledge institutes. And it is actually the collaboration between these parties that create a sustainable model and sustainable projects like we did in China, as well we do in Africa. Why? Also, getting back to Nigeria, for those who have been there, it's a big museum of failed development projects. If you just travel around, you see a lot of projects that failed. Why? Because they were not sustainable, they were not part of value chains, and with embedding that into proper value chains, then actually they become self-sufficient at the end of the day and have a long-term future. That is the basis of the model that we apply in many countries. So actually that's why we established the Center for Nigerian Dutch Dairy Development, where we work with many partners, universities, the University of Abuja as an example, other knowledge institutes, Van Hal Arenstein, so that is how we met actually. They're a partner of this institute that we established, when was it, October last year, together with partners like the Rabobank, but also other private companies in Nigeria. We see this as a very strong basis for collaboration and to build a very strong foundation for accelerating our backward integration and dairy development activities in Nigeria. As I said, 10 minutes is very short for a huge challenge and a huge, beautiful country like Nigeria. We're going to extend the model to other countries like Cote d'Ivoire, Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia, Philippines, Pakistan. We're very active. And in all these countries, we apply similar type models. The challenges are different, but in essence, the model that we apply of the golden triangle and 10 building blocks apply for all these type countries. So that in short, backward integration dairy development in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jeroen. Yeah, and it's still going on in time. 10 minutes is 10 minutes. Thanks a lot. A lot of development of the dairy value chain. We also in the Netherlands also talk about the environmental footprint, the climate change, impact on climate change. Also, that kind of things are integrated in the value chain you will arrange in Nigeria. But also the discussion about greenhouse gases is also going on in Africa. And the next speaker, that is Andreas Wilkes, and he will take us with greenhouse gases in Ethiopia. So also this problem is also a problem, a point. It's an important thing we have to discuss. Is also a discussion point in Ethiopia. So we will listen to him, and he will also take us with us in this part. And he is online, and I think it will go on at this moment. Andreas, could you hear us, and could you say something?
It's your turn, Andreas.
Thank you very much, Robert. It's a great honor to be invited.
Something is going wrong. Please wait a moment.
I've been asked to talk about the topic of greenhouse gas.
Andreas, can you wait a second? And we have to make the sound a little bit louder.
Could you try again?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it is now okay. Please, if you want to start again, the floor is for you.
Great. Thank you. It's a great honor to have been invited to speak on the occasion of Professor Bass' inauguration. I've been asked to talk on the topic of greenhouse gas emissions in the dairy sector in Ethiopia and Kenya. I will keep my discussion brief, focusing on a high-level overview of what do we know and what do we not know. Could you move to the next slide, please? And the next one. Yeah, thank you. So here in the chart, we have the emissions from dairy cattle in Ethiopia and Kenya, both estimated using country-specific data in their national greenhouse gas inventories. We can see that the emissions have been rising, particularly in Ethiopia, but the Ethiopian dairy sector is still a very small sector compared to that in Kenya. The increase in emissions is mainly due to increased dairy cattle populations. Some of the increase is due to increase in productivity. Most of the emissions from dairy cattle are enteric fermentation emissions. A smaller part is manure management. And if you could click one more time, please. We are also able to tell, this is an example from Kenya, that the emission intensity, so the emissions per unit of milk produced, has been decreasing over time. And this is mainly due to the productivity increase. So in this example from Kenya, as the milk yields, average milk yields increased from about 1,930 kilograms per year to around 2040. So the carbon footprint has decreased from about 2.8 kilograms carbon dioxide to below 2.4. So this illustrates that increasing productivity is a good way to manage or balance the trade-off or the relationship between the environmental impact and the need to meet demand for dairy products in these countries. Next, please. So that was at the national level. Looking now to the farm level. So these are results from a survey of about 400 farms in central Kenya, the main dairy producing or more intensive dairy producing part of Kenya. And we can see there's considerable variability among farms, both in milk yields and in emission intensities or carbon footprint. So in this diagram, the milk yield per farm is in kilograms is on the bottom axis, and the carbon footprint is on the left-hand axis. And milk yield explains about half of the variation in carbon footprint. So essentially, as you increase milk yield, carbon footprint will be decreasing. But there are some other key factors involved. We found that the remaining variation can largely be explained by the use of concentrate feed, herd size, and herd structure. So herd size, the larger the herd, it tends to be the lower the emission intensity. Concentrate feed use and herd structure, I'll talk about those in a minute. But overall, it means there's considerable potential to reduce the emissions from the sector by increasing milk yield, which is a win-win together with the productivity and farmers' income objectives. Next slide, please. So the main issue in what we don't know, I think, really is about how to enable adoption of better practices. So to take the example of concentrate feeding, we do know that it's a major cost for many dairy farmers. We also know that most farmers don't adjust the use of concentrate according to the animal's needs over the lactation cycle. And we know that there are limited opportunities on farm for producing energy feeds to replace concentrate. What we really don't know is how to change farmers' behavior. What are the incentives or the other interventions that can effectively support farmers to make more efficient use of the concentrate that they purchase? On the herd structure side, so we know that calving rates can be increased by better management, and this will impact on the herd structure. But we also know that farmers use cattle to meet other financial needs, school fees and other expenditures that they have. And cattle are a very important savings, like a bank account, as well as having important cultural and other non-financial functions. So in these cases, so what is it that can support farmers to change in a way which helps them meet all of their own objectives whilst also lowering the carbon footprint of dairy production? In particular, what are the partnerships that can enable farmers to access the knowledge, skills, finance, as well as the markets required to support adoption? So these are many of the questions that I would say we really don't know fully what the answers to these are. Now, in the last couple of years, I had the pleasure of working together with Professor Bass on an NVO-funded inclusive and climate-smart business models in Ethiopian and Kenyan dairy value chains project. And we worked together exploring these issues, in particular through a living labs approach, in which we worked with people that we have long-term relationships with, individuals or organizations in the sector, and worked together with them to address these problems in collaboration with farmers and other stakeholders in the sector. And this Living Labs approach, I think, is a very valuable approach, and I'm sure in the future, Professor Bass and colleagues will continue to apply this in their research. It's really the best way to link the knowledge institutions that we just heard talked about with the practical issues in the sector in a stakeholder context. So That's a very brief overview of what we know, what we don't know. Congratulations again to Professor Bas on your appointment. And I'm sure that your students and partners in the sector will benefit greatly from the work you will conduct as Professor of Climate Smart Dairy. Thank you very much.
Another role in this program. You have to, to make a reflection on the speech of Robert later in the program. So we will see you back. And also, there is also a role from Jeroen and also a role from Peter. We will go to Peter. Peter from GeoZ. He will introduce himself. It's another kind of discussion we get. In the Netherlands, we can puzzle a little bit with higher production and better farmers management, but it is another situation. We have to focus on feeding, on smart technology to reduce our emissions, to reduce our footprint. And I think, we have here a good idea to puzzle on smart technology to reduce our footprint. And Peter will take us with us in his concept.
Thank you very much, Robert. Congratulations from GeoZ. GeoZ was introduced as a local sound. It's right for the galaxy. We deliver on America, Japan, south of Europe, East Europe. So if that is the local sound, then it's the local sound. GeoZ makes robots to clean floors in stables. We put manure, and our motto is home of the clean stable. Now we are a little bit further. We want to do some more things with manure. And home of the clean stable means also not only the floors must be cleaned, but also the environment. They are working on it. Ja, die. Of gewoon langslopen.
Yep.
We have developed a machine, and we called it the N-Cracker. But because we also deliver in Germany and in Friesland, we have the N-Brecher, of the stikstofverwijderaar in Fries. So we had chosen another name, the Gazoo. What is the Gazoo? The Gazoo, maybe you know about the Flintstones. There was a little green monster, and he solved all the problems of Fred and Barney, and he was called the Gazoo. The Gazoo, because we have also a robot, it's called Barney, so we have some things with the Flintstones. Not because they are very old, but they have always good manners to use in this time. What does the Gazoo do? It gets the ammonia out of the manure and makes fertilizer of it. This is our first null series. It's the zero series. You can see the nitrogen cracker, and behind you see some silos, and there comes a fertilizer inside. We make of the ammonia out of manure, we make fertilizer. And when the silos are full, you have 25,000 cubic meter of gas you haven't used to make fertilizer in a factory. So there is a lot of opportunity for this machine. Verder. Nog maar één. How does it work? I have here a little graph. We see on the left side, we call it the evaporator. There is the manure going in, the tin fraction. We evaporate the ammonia out of the manure. We make a gas of it. Manure will also give a little bit gas, little bit ammonia, but we do it in the gazoo that extends a lot of ammonia, and then we catch it in an air scrubber. And the air scrubber puts it into the water with an acid, and you have a fertilizer. So when you then use the manure on your field, you don't have any emissions anymore to the environment. Another thing what we do, I said JOZ is the home of the clean stable. We use the tin fraction where the manure is evaporate out. We use to clean the floors. Now we scrape them and we use some water when it is possible. But when you use water, you have more manure. And manure exists about 10% of dry matter and 90% of water. And because we have the ammonia out of it, we can use it to clean the stables and make also the stables emission poor. And also when we put again the manure water, and that's the tin fraction without ammonia, into the pit, you can see that also the emissions of the manure goes down. We have developed it, and then I called it Van Hal Institute, because I was a long time ago, I was a student here, and I called for some help. And then Robert came on the phone, so I had immediately a lot of power. And what we want is to examine how we can use the manure water on the fields. What does it with the emissions? What does it with the growth? And another important thing, what does it with the tasting? Because we use in the gazoo natrium hydroxide. Natrium hydroxide causes a lot of emissions, we need that. But the natrium, when goes into the manure, and when you put natrium on your field, the cows eat more grass. They like it more. It's just like we use salt for the cows, it's also for the grass, it's better. So we want to find out what does that do, and we have asked Robert to make there a program for us. And also the fertilizer we want to put on the field, and we want to see what does that also with the grass. I have here some results of the ammonia who goes out of the tin fraction, and you see within a day you have 80% less ammonia in your manure. Here another graph. It's because of the time I keep it a little bit short, but that is the thing we do. We make now what is now a problem, that's ammonia who goes to the environment. We make a fertilizer of it, and with the gazoo you have less ammonia to the environment, and you don't have to use a lot of gas to buy fertilizer. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Peter. A lot of perspective for the world, I think. There's better words. So I'm sorry about the first words. A lot of perspective for the world for this kind of technology. We will make the next step in the program, the real step, the inauguration speech of Robert Baars. He will connect everything from Kenya to Ethiopia to the Netherlands, and technology, and really going with climate smart solutions, going for climate smart solution on all that areas, I think, and he will do it. Yeah, he will take us with us in 40 minutes, and I think that is more than possible. Robert, the floor is for you, and we will listen, and after your presentation there is a reflection through the speakers, and then we will see it's all good enough or not.
Let me check, is my mic working?
Okay. Thank you very much. It is an honor to stand here and to celebrate this nice moment, this inauguration. It is also nice to know that apart from the people in front of me, there are many more persons who are attending this event online. I would really like to welcome all the online partners, friends, whatever, family as well. A special thank for my colleagues of Van Gaal Larenstein University of Applied Sciences. In the first place, our chair of the executive board, Mr. Jan van Iersel, and Nick de Boer, the director of the Applied Research Center here in Leeuwarden. We have also, I also have a lot of colleagues involved in teaching, in research, with whom I collaborate a lot, and I really would like to thank them also for all the things we did together and for being here. I would like to give a word of thanks to and welcome to support staff. I had a lot of support last weeks in the preparation of this event, and it was really great to experience that. And lastly, I have a few retired colleagues here who enjoy their retirement. It is so nice to see you here. A nice welcome to you as well. Then I would like to have a welcome for a number of, I don't know how many students are online, but I know there are many alumni online from all over the world. And again, to you also a nice, warm welcome. There are many external partners. I can mention Wageningen University Research, and also the Universities of Applied Sciences. I know that some of you are also online. A warm welcome. And in addition to that, I'm working a lot with partners in the sector, international partners, actually most are international partners, as JOZ also has been stressing. A warm welcome, and a particular warm welcome to the 4 guest speakers who address topics which are related to my field. And lastly, a warm welcome to friends and family who are also, many of them, online. It is also very weird for me to stand here. These last weeks it was overwhelming when it comes to attention leading towards this moment. So it really is very weird, but it also gives me a good feeling. So where's the... I will do this, yeah. So in the next graph, next slide, I'm showing the presentation that I'm going to give. I'm going to focus on five points, and I have only 30-40 minutes, so I will keep everything short, as the previous speakers have also been doing. I will first address the focus of the professorship, and I'm going to explain what a professorship is, because many of you don't even know what a professorship of a University of Applied Sciences is. I will start with that. And then I will zoom in what is climate smart dairy, and in relation to that I want to zoom in the concept of carbon footprint. Number 4 is on nitrogen, and then I'm focusing on the Netherlands. And lastly, I will talk about a number of change strategies. Okay. The drawing that I was showing you before, maybe I have to go back. The drawing that is actually the lead of my presentation. And this drawing was made after I prepared a speech of this inauguration. And then this was a visualization of my speech. And then I thought, okay, let me throw away the PowerPoint and let me use you for my speech. So that is what happened. And as I said, I first would like to address the whole concept of a professorship. And first thing is that I would like to indicate that I am actually part and parcel of the Dairy Campus program. And the Dairy Campus has a number of programs, and one of them is what we call the education program. And this professorship, and not only that, some other items as well, are financed through that program. So that is also why we are here celebrating it together with the Dairy Campus. If you look at this circle, you'll find basically 4 core elements that are all together in an integrated way, representing what a professorship is supposed to do. Not only this one, but all over the Netherlands. All these professorships have the objective to bring research, knowledge, and education, professionalization of staff, and knowledge circulation with all member partners. That integrated objective is true for all. In the professorship I'm going to work in is what I'm going to do when it comes to the knowledge circulation. I will focus on 3 main elements. The first one is related or focusing on climate smart dairy practices, mainly at farm level. In relation to that, also the socio-economic benefits of it, or effects of it, or environment of it. And third, the process of scaling up. So how can we make sure that if you have some good things, good elements, how can we bring it further so that it will be used? For example, like this JOZ, I have to get used, Bazoo. Like this, so once it is working, how can we make sure that people are going to use it? That's the scaling up. In the professorship, I have 2 focuses. One is the Netherlands, and one is an international focus. And here on the map you find Africa, because there is where the focus is. That is not because we only do Africa, but other colleagues are focusing on Asia, so my focus will be mainly on Africa. And there's a hell of a difference between these 2 situations. In the Netherlands we have high input, high output, and in Africa we have low input, low output, with all kinds of consequences, good ones and bad ones. In the Netherlands we have high carbon, we have high nitrogen emissions. In Africa, not. In the Netherlands we have low carbon footprint per kilogram milk. In Africa it's the reverse. We have high and balanced quality feed here. In Africa it is a big problem. We have a lot of export. In Africa they have a lot of import, etc., etc. So the situations are completely different. But there is one thing that is the same, and that is that we are talking on the one hand of technical aspects related to dairy practices, and on the other hand we are talking about the socio-economic environment. And these 2 things are related, they are connected to each other. In the next graph you see blue bars and orange bars in 4 countries. The blue bars are representing what we call formal dairy value chains. These are chains where milk is collected and processed in a factory, and where quality control is under control. And in the orange bars you find the informal, where there is no processor, but the milk is still finding its consumer. So both are existing, and in most countries you will find actually both. Also in the Netherlands you have an increase of farmers who want to sell their milk by themselves, also because of economic reasons. So there is a small proportion of informal, but you see on the graph that in Africa it is really a different situation. That is also why this professorship is called Climate Smart Dairy Value Chain. So the dairy value chain is part of it. The approach that we do, where we would like to, let's say, couple our projects, is the approach of living labs. this was also mentioned by Jeroen from Friesland Campina. They are actually doing that in Nigeria, but we are also doing that. And a living lab is actually, it's not a lab, it is a network, a group of network where partners are working together. And we are bringing in projects, and we are bringing in concepts of value chain. We are bringing in partners in that network. And if I look at it from the perspective of Van Hals and Larenstein, so not from the perspective of the Living Lab as such, but for us, then I really would like to involve students, staff, research staff, teaching staff, but also alumni, all bring them together, let them work together, and of course with the other partners that we have, the private sector, for example Friesland Campina, but can be other knowledge institutions and many more local partners. And what we do in the African context is that we are not bringing in only research projects. Yes, we do that, but in addition to that we also bring in capacity building projects. Very often these are short courses where all these alumni come back, we see them again, and we make them again partner in this Living Lab principle. And that was also where Simon Amondi was talking about. That was, yeah, okay. So, and the next slide you find one of the happy happenings when we were celebrating the end of the short courses. But all these short courses are actually part and parcel of the Living Lab. And also now in Nigeria, we have, with a few colleagues, developed a new small project, again capacity building project, and we are linking it to the initiative of Friesland Campina in Nigeria. So this is how the Living Lab works. A Living Lab is a long-term vision, a long-term strategy to bring all these things together, and all these different projects together will add up and form together the Living Lab. So a project is not a Living Lab, no. The whole set of projects that you're doing over a long time, that is the Living Lab. Now I would like to go to my next topic. So I've closed down really what is a professorship, what are we doing, what is the strategy. But now when I zoom in the content of Climate Smart Dairy, there are basically, well, let me first go to the definition of it. The definition of Climate Smart Dairy, or climate smart agriculture in the wider sense, it has three main elements. The first one is we have to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. That's one. Second is we have to make sure that we create resilience. In Dutch that is weerbaarheid, resilience of the farmers. And then third, we have to make sure that we have to maintain, whatever we are going to do, we have to maintain a sustainable income for the farmers. And that's a big challenge. That is true for the Netherlands, that is true for Africa. And well, these three elements that I mentioned earlier, what is actually climate smart in the context of this professorship, searching for climate smart practices, the economics and the scaling up, is linked to that. Now, there is one thing I also would like to say about climate smart dairy, because it's also a kind of, it sounds like a kind of a fashion word. Suddenly, there is a lot of talking about climate smart agriculture. And yeah, yes, that is true. And we call that a paradigm. And a paradigm, I have a definition here. A paradigm is a standard or a perspective or a set of ideas. And actually, a paradigm is a way of looking at it. So we are now looking at dairy production, the dairy value chain, with that new glasses. And these new glasses is the climate smart dairy. And these new glasses is mainly focusing on climate change, on global warming. These are the glasses that we have worldwide. Nitrogen is a completely different discussion. I will come back to that later, but it is a separate discussion that is not in this concept. So yeah, we are looking at it with new glasses, you can say. We measure greenhouse gas emissions. We measure that in terms of carbon footprints worldwide. And I'm going to explain a little bit. I don't want to make it very technical because I have many people who are not familiar with the topic, so I will keep it quite general. But still, I'm going to zoom in a little bit in the technical issues. I want to try to show you what it does, but also how it works in practice. So first, I have this table, and you see that I'm focusing on three main, or not me. We are talking about three main emissions, gases, that are important in dairy production. We're talking about carbon dioxide, we are talking about methane, and we are talking about nitrous oxide. These three are the main ones. There are more, but these are the three ones. And that's already difficult enough. And methane, you find the figure 25, that means methane is 25 times stronger than carbon dioxide. We measure that in what we call 100-year global warming potentials. There's a whole technical calculations behind that. That is not necessary to discuss. And if you look, what is it? What is then causing all these emissions from the dairy farmer's point of view? Then you see that CO2 is mainly the use of fuel. It is the plowing or turning or destroying the soil, disturbing the soil. Methane is basically coming out of rumen fermentation and manure. And Andreas was mentioning it. It is mainly 85% is coming from rumen fermentation worldwide. And then we have nitrous oxide. We are talking about the production of fertilizer, and we are talking about application and storage of manure. If I jump to the next graph, let me first go to the right, the blue graph. You see that when it comes to emissions, they are mainly created at farm level. That means 85%. So if you look at from the perspective of the whole chain, then 85% is caused or produced at farm level. And the other 15% is further in the chain or earlier in the chain. We are talking about processing, for example, or transport. So yeah, the real challenge is, or the main challenge I can say, is at farm level. Now if you go to the left, you find these two pie charts, one for the Netherlands and one for Kenya. And what you see is that the proportion of methane in the African context is much higher than the proportion in the Netherlands. But this is a relative visualization. In absolute terms, it's completely different. Because we are producing a lot of milk and our cows are producing a lot of milk. So what we can do in the calculations, we will dilute the methane over many liters of milk. And in Africa, a cow is producing 2 liters of milk. That is why the methane from fermentation has a real strong element in it. But the volume of, let's say, the volume of fermentation is, of course, it changes if you produce more milk, but not too much. So that is the production. And I would now like to go to a figure that Andreas has been showing us. It is his figure on the left bottom side. And yeah, here again, it is the relationship between carbon footprint and milk production. And the higher the milk production, the lower the carbon footprint. And in the other graph, the top graph, you will see a lot of purple dots, and each dot is representing a country. So a country average. And what you see is that we in the Netherlands, we are in the good part of the graph. We are on the right side, the right bottom side, when it comes to emissions in terms of CO2 equivalents per kilogram milk. Officially we use food, fat and protein corrected milk, but for this presentation, I just talk about milk. So we are good. We are the good side of the graph. And Kenya or Ethiopia or Nigeria, they are on the wrong side of the graph. They are on the left high side. So there is a lot of promotion of this concept, and we are trying to bring down this, let's say, the carbon footprint of milk in the African context towards what we do in the Netherlands. But I have a problem with this. I really have a problem with this, because this concept by itself is not explaining everything. This concept, this carbon footprint, is not really representing a good sustainable farming system. Because if it would do that, then we would have, looking at this graph, we would not have all the challenges that we have today. And we have many environmental challenges. So for me, there is something not correct, or well, maybe not correct. Yeah, maybe something not correct in the use of this parameter. I think it is a very useful parameter, but I think we have to look for additional parameters, or we have to reconsider when to use it and when not to use it. And I'm going to illustrate this with an example in the next graph. This is actually a result of one of our master's students working in Zimbabwe, and fresh from the pers, zoals we dat in Dutch say. It is this student defended her thesis this week, and what you see is the discussion of carbon footprint per kilogram milk in the first two bars on the left side. And you compare, in this graph, we compare two farming systems. One is the large-scale farmers, and in Zimbabwe you can think about 100 farmers. That's quite considerable. And we are talking about small-scale farmers, and in the context of Zimbabwe that is roughly 25 milking cows per farm. So you will see that, and that is also what we see in the Netherlands, you will see that the larger farms, which have a more intense management, higher production levels, that they have lower carbon footprints per kilogram milk compared to the small-scale farmers. But if you look at the next graph, in the next two bars in this chart, you will see the reverse. So on the left it is per kilogram milk, and in the second two bars it is per hectare. So what you see is that we have embraced a very nice parameter as a key for many policies also, or implementations. But in practice, if you look from the sustainability point of view, from the environmental point of view, it falls short. I think you have to combine it with more factors. For example, that second one. And we have to, I think it is possible to find practical ways to do it. So I see people looking like, ooh, this is strange, but it is, what I would like to do is to work with partners on how can we make that parameter practical and combine it with other parameters. Another thing is, but that is now I'm going to, because the one thing I forget, and I should tell you, this is not about Zimbabwe only. This is also about the Netherlands. For example, if you think about regular farms, regular dairy farms in the Netherlands, and you compare them with organic farms, you have the same situation. You will find the regular farms in the blue bars, and you will find the organic farms in the red bars. So yeah, so this is not an issue of Zimbabwe. This is an issue that I think we have to address worldwide. Another element that I would like to discuss, and also this is a result from one of our students from Ethiopia in this case. I'm still talking about CO2 equivalents per kilogram milk. I'm still talking about that. And if you look at the Netherlands, we have milk and milk and milk. And in the end, when the cow is ready for slaughter, then a little bit of meat. But in the African context, and Jeroen, you mentioned it, in Nigeria they have a meat-based system. So we cannot compare milk here and milk there, because milk in the African context is completely different. It is just one of the products. So this parameter by itself is, I think, ready for further discussion. Okay, enough about this. I would like to, I have only 2 slides on nitrogen, or 3 slides. First, it is clear nitrogen is a problem mainly in the Netherlands. And in Africa, they have only a shortage of nitrogen. And again here, the difference is low input, low output versus high input, high output. If you look at the two graphs that I'm now showing you, and I will start with the one on the top right, you see that in the Netherlands we have been able to reduce the nitrogen emissions from 1990 up to 2017 considerably. Really a lot of efforts have been done to bring down the emissions of nitrogen in the Netherlands. Two things that I can mention is we started injecting manure in the soil instead of spreading it on the field. Another issue that we did was reducing the amount of protein in the feed. It was really very high in 1990, 25% crude protein. Nowadays we have 16, 17%. So these are main sources. But still, if you look at the bottom graph, that is also 2017, with all these success stories of lowering it, we are still the champions when it comes to the output of ammonia or nitrogen to the air. I think we have some visitors on the background. Yeah? So it is nice that we can control here and mute here and there a bit. So the bottom graph is showing that in 2017, the Netherlands, despite all these efforts, are still the lead in Europe when it comes to nitrogen emissions. So yeah, we have really done a lot, but we have not done enough. We have to go much further than what we have been doing, and particularly if you also compare it with other countries. The next slide is a bit full, a lot of information, but let me summarize it for you. We find on the left a table where nitrogen is an input to the farming systems, the dairy farming systems. Actually, this is agriculture in the Netherlands, not dairy. And on the right, we find what is going out. And if you look at what's going in, you see basically that it is feed and fertilizer, so the inputs. And what goes out is the products, and that is of course what we want. We mainly talk about milk, but also meat and other. But what I indicated in blue is what is escaping from the system, what is going to the air, what is going into the soil. And that's a lot. That is almost the same as what enters in the products. So that is a situation where we still are, and this is still a big challenge. Now, there are lots of rules and regulations, and particularly EU directives, and there are four mentioned: the bird and habitat directives and the water and nitrogen directives. They are existing, and they are forcing us to take action. Because I sometimes wonder if the EU was not doing this to the Netherlands, where would we be? I think we need sometimes this push. Now, what I find also very interesting is when I started in this diving into this climate smart dairy topic, I was very much worrying or questioning myself. Why is it that when we talk about carbon footprint, we are talking about the CO2 emissions per kilogram milk, and when we talk about nitrogen, we are talking about emissions per hectare. And I was talking with my colleagues over and over again, why is this carbon footprint not also mentioned per hectare? Because then I at least have something to compare from another perspective. And why is this nitrogen also not expressed in kilogram milk? Because if I go back to that beautiful graph where we were so successful in our emissions in the Netherlands, if you would do the same graph in nitrogen, you will get the reverse picture. It is Africa setting the good example. So my ambition is, through this professorship, is to work on this together with all partners and try to find ways and means to get clarity on this. And maybe we have to combine parameters. Maybe we have to develop new ones. So that is a challenge that I really would like to work on. And as we speak, we have 2 master students who are, as a trial, working out a number of situations all over the world doing that. Well, that's a lot of work, a lot of talking about nitrogen, but now what can we do? You know, what is being done in the Netherlands or in the world? So what are the change strategies that we can apply? And I find it very interesting to have this word change strategies, because VHL is now really adapting what we call the facilitator of change concept, and that is really pleasing me more than anyone else. So I would really like to make a contribution to that as well. Here in this graph you find actually 2 levels of strategies. In the first circle you find 5 main elements. We are talking about pasture and feed. We are talking about housing systems. We are talking about manure and manure management. We are talking about breeds, and we're talking about productivity. Now in the Netherlands, this whole productivity is not really on the agenda. Of course it is important, but it is not on the research agenda. And breeds, it is not yet on the research agenda. Maybe we will focus on that much more when we would like to see the variation between animals when it comes to emissions. But and in the outside circle, you find actually more strategies at macro level, the transitions, the directives, and the total environment. So the lower circle is the influence of dairy farms, farm level, and the outer circle is more the strategic ones. And I would like to start with the outer circle, and I have a terrible slide for you with too much information, but I still have to present it. I want to present it. You find here the strategies or the change transition pathways of 2 documents. The left one is let's say the international pathways for dairy development. And this is from the perspective of Dutch International Cooperation, ICE. And many people contributed to it. Even people here in this audience, I know, have been contributing to this document, and many people also online have been contributing to it. It was really supported by a lot of people working in the Dutch dairy development scenery. Very nice. And on the right, you find a report which was actually published by the Economic Advisory Council, the Sociaal-Economische Raad, recently. And they also have transition pathways, but then from the Dutch perspective. And actually what you find in that right part of the table is all kinds of different levels of intensity, from very high closed systems, and if you go down the list you find that it is becoming more and more extensive. All these pathways are potential pathways to deal with the whole issue of climate smart agriculture and to deal with the issues of nitrogen. So your machine, Peter, it will fit in some of these systems and it will not fit in other systems. And if I go to Nigeria, on the left side, this is your program, Jeroen. So your 10 building blocks are actually also here. And what I've done, I've colored this slide from the eyes of dairy production and the eyes of dairy chain. And then you see that the dairy production is really the focus in the Netherlands, but the dairy chain is really the focus from the African context. So it's nice to see that we have these differences. And as was mentioned, you cannot do dairy development without also doing dairy chain development. In the Netherlands, we are basically, and I mentioned it already, we are basically focusing when it comes to dealing with the issues of carbon footprint as well as nitrogen. We are dealing with 3 clusters of topics, and one is related to housing or housing systems. The second is related to manure management, and the third one is pasture and feed. And it's also very nice to mention that this dairy campus, or through this dairy campus, there have been 4 webcasts about this topic, and they are very nice, very clear. So for any person who has interest in this topic, I want to hear more details, very accessible quality materials available online. In the African context, we have these same 3 clusters. Again, housing, manure, and feed and forage are coming back, but the content, or let's say the details of it, they are completely different. But here we have, again, this issue of productivity. When I was a student 30 years ago, or even longer ago, I was told about international dairy production. We are talking about dairy, we're talking about improved housing, improved productivity, improved feed, improved breeds, all these things that are still on this slide. So lots of things have been on this agenda already for 30 years. The only difference is, as I mentioned earlier, our glasses have changed. The topics are still there, but our glasses have changed, and we have not been progressing enough to replace these with more detailed elements. Then this slide is representing the green universities in the Netherlands. We have Wageningen University and Research, and the other 4 are universities of applied sciences. And I want to show you this picture because in almost all projects that we implement, we work together. And that is true for the Dutch context. That is also true for the international context. And it is not, so it is a really integrated system. We have really made big steps, I think, in collaboration. And within all these circles, you'll find the different professorships, including the VHL ones. They are also working together because we have an agenda that is overlapping. And that is because the problems that we are facing nowadays in dairy production, they are quite big challenges. So it is time for me to conclude. And what I would like to say is that, what I would like to also mention as a final remark is that, yeah, I have been here and there a little bit critical, and I want to make clear that we have objective eyes when we look at certain situations and conditions. But at the same time, if I look what is available already, technical, let's say, interventions, climate smart practices, technical interventions. For example, this nitrogen cracker, but also in relation to feed, to manure, there are so many things already available. Now, it is very difficult to implement them all at the same time. We have many rules and regulations. Sometimes they are not helping you in the implementation. And on the other hand, we have to make sure that we are not going to push away the farmers. We have to make sure that our farmers are staying where they are, and we have to help them in getting forward. They have really come in a very difficult situation, and I think the whole sector should work together to really make a change. We in the Netherlands, from the political point of view, are very famous because we have what we call a consensus model, the ons poldermodel. We are very, very good in this consensus at political level. But when I look at the dairy sector, sorry, I don't see that. We have Camp A and we have Camp B, and we are really challenging each other. We are taking each other to the court. I think we have to also develop something like a poldermodel in the dairy sector, and that is really necessary to make a next step. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we will go to the next round. To make a reflection on Robert. The 4 speakers we will ask the 4 speakers to make a short reflection on the presentation of Robert, and maybe they also could make a critical question to Robert about his speech. So please think about the critical question, but first a short reflection of the 4 speakers And I think, yeah, Robert has given a lot of information, a lot of points to discuss, and I think there are also critical points to discuss. And I think also we have a lot of connection also in Africa and the Netherlands. We have to do a lot of research in both situations, and we have make the step, a lot of research on housing and technology. We have to research on manure, and we have to research on feeding, and that will maybe combine Africa and the Netherlands. But now, at this moment, we go to the reflection, to the speaker, to Robert Baars, and then we will start with, I think Simon Armondi isn't there, or
He is there.
he is there. So then we will start with Simon Armondi from Kenya to have a short reflection on the presentation of Robert Baars. Simon, are you there?
Yes, thank you very much, and sorry for intermittent disruptions. Evening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this great occasion of the inauguration of Professor Robert Baars. Congratulations, Prof. I'm sorry, my connection was a bit, I had disruptions because I'm out of Nairobi, but I've been able to follow the presentations, not getting the sound, but I was able to get the presentation on the screen. Thank you for, I would like to make a reflection, and thank you for your presentation, Professor Baars. Indeed, this is a very important subject, especially in sub-Saharan Africa and in Kenya, given that our smallholder dairy system is one of the best examples in sub-Saharan Africa. Nevertheless, the issue of reducing greenhouse gas emissions has not been so much embedded in our production system because even currently with the project on climate smart dairy practices, the emphasis is on climate smart crops and breeds. But I do agree that one of the strategies, especially in sub-Saharan Africa and in Kenya, should be on sustainable dairy production, because dairy is just part of the farming system, and our smallholder dairy production is practiced in a mixed farming system. So practices such as a circular dairy, in which manure is utilized to be able to fertilize the forage, as well as production of gas for fuel, is one of the practices that can go a long way in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. I do agree, as you presented, these are two different perspectives and agendas. The milestones that the Netherlands has made vis-a-vis the international, vis-a-vis Africa and Asia. And personally, I think that policy, affirmative policy action, such as one that is used to be able to give incentives for smallholders, such as the carbon credit approach. I believe if we had such a policy incentive towards reduction of greenhouse gas emissions on smallholder dairy, that will go a long way into sensitizing smallholder dairy farmers on the negative effects of greenhouse gas emissions and in general the carbon footprint as a result of enteric fermentation and manure management. It's indeed, it cannot be done by farmers alone or knowledge institutions alone, and which is why the Living Lab approach through Van Hal Lorenstein University is a good platform to be able to continue this debate. And as seen from my presentation, through this collaboration, we are trying to sensitize stakeholders around the 6 countries in the Eastern and Central Africa as alumni of the Netherlands to ensure that stakeholders within the dairy value chains are able to adopt climate smart practices. So I'm so grateful to be able to speak on this occasion. Quite, an eye opener, and this discussion cannot end today. It's a discussion that has to continue because the ravages of climate change and especially greenhouse gas emissions are real in our production system. Thank you very much.
For your reflection. We also have a lot of people online in this meeting. You could also mention 1 or 2 questions. Marco Verschuur will get the best questions in this meeting. And maybe we could make 1 or 2 questions. And we will ask that to Robert at the last part. So when there is 1 or 2 very difficult questions, I hope, we will ask them to Robert at the end. Now we will go on with Jeroen Elvers and a short reflection to the presentation of Robert Baars.
Okay, thank you for giving a reflection on this presentation. I think what the way you presented it makes it very clear it's a very complex theme, but also that expresses in itself that it is important that we work on this, and that's also why these topics need strong collaboration. What I mainly take away from the presentation is threefold. One is getting the facts right, and I think that came out very clear, is that sometimes we're drawn into comparing apples with pears between countries, facts and figures, etc. Getting the facts right before we take any conclusions, and I found that very strong. I haven't found any moment where a position was taken between good or right or whatsoever. It was just shown, okay, we have facts and we have to get them integral right. The second one was also mentioned by Simon about the Living Lab approach, or the dairy value chain, or the total value chain approach, and connecting the different partners throughout the sector, combining them, technology, expertise, and also assuring that research can at the end of the day turn into practice. So actually that it is put forward in a way that it can be used and create improvements, whatever, either in Africa or in the Netherlands or other countries. And a third is more personal note, and is that relates to yourself, and it's very clear that you have a passion for the topic and the topics what you present. So actually you see that you live the themes. A question I have is, you mentioned at some part in the presentation in relation to high productivity, yield, etc., a big difference also between the continents. And a question would be, have you taken into consideration the correlation with biodiversity and animal health and welfare in relation to energy and climate?
join you here. You can stand here together.
Okay.
Well, the question is whether I have been considering in the whole concept, the concept of biodiversity, and the other one was?
Animal health and
Animal
welfare.
health. Yeah, you know, for me, when it comes to climate smart dairy, if you zoom in, if you zoom in and you go into a situation of a project or research, it is automatically I will meet my my colleagues who are in related fields. My colleague Wiep Voskamp is on sustainable dairy farming, or also from other universities of applied sciences when we're talking about pasture and feed. There are lots of things to be done. Always you have to see all these things in the complete context. And I did not mention them, but I know we have these overlapping agendas. The whole issue and discussion of circular farming with Professor Rick Eweg, I cannot run away from that also. The whole discussion of nitrogen is fully also related to that. So no, I have not forgotten it. I might not have mentioned it, but each and every research that we are doing, we have to make sure that we bring all these things together. And that is also why I was talking about this consensus model, because it is so complex. And yeah, that's my reaction.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks. Clear. Then we will go online again. Andreas Wilkes is still there, and I think he has also a short reflection on the presentation as Peter. You are on the screen again, Andreas, so I take the word.
Thank you. Just checking, can you hear me clearly? Yeah, thank you. I also had some of the same issues as Simon in accessing the sound, but I was able to follow at least on screen. And so I'll just be very brief. Three things struck me. I think the first is that you importantly capture that there are diverse issues in different countries. You know, whether it's the balance between methane and nitrous oxide as the prime gas of concern, or whether it's trade-offs between greenhouse gas and other issues. Secondly, very importantly, that it's clear from your presentation that greenhouse gas is not the sole criterion for deciding anything. And with a professorship title that includes climate smart, that's very good to remember, especially when working in developing countries where the impacts of climate change risks, and food security remain important questions. Thirdly, I was struck that, well, both research and learning are about knowing what questions to ask. And you certainly raised a lot of questions. And as Jeroen mentioned, not necessarily providing answers to them all, which I think is actually quite suitable. And that gives me a lot of hope that the students under your professorship and your other colleagues, the lecturers, will be able to benefit greatly from this vision that you've set out. I think in terms of the need for greater evidence on some of these issues, for the need for engagement with others in the sector to research and work on these issues together, and above all for enthusiasm to work on the topics. And I'm quite sure that you will be able to inspire all of these in both students and colleagues. So it was a very refreshing presentation. Thank you for giving me a chance to give you some feedback on that.
Difficult question for Robert. A little bit difficult. He may sweat a little bit.
Then the difficult question would be, in your balance between the teaching, the professionalization of staff, the knowledge circulation among stakeholders and so on, what's the critical thing that you must really deal with in order to have the kind of impact that you wish to have?
Well, that's a nice question. I'm happy to respond to that. Well, first of all, we are a University of Applied Sciences, and I think we have in the Netherlands, it's very clear that when it comes to fundamental research, this is not our mandate. Our partners in Wageningen University of Research will do that. When it comes to the issue of applied research, we all meet. Wageningen University is also doing applied research, and all these other universities of applied sciences. So this agenda is way too big for a small university of Van Hal Lagenstein to really address it and to claim the mandate. No way. We are making a small contribution, and we will do that in collaboration with all these other partners. But I think this whole partnership issue is crucial to it. And I'm not sure whether it is related to it, Andreas, but I will still one thing I would like to mention, which I actually forgot in my presentation, is if I look at this project we had in Ethiopia, Kenya, we had so many partners involved, and we had more, because that is the question, what is actually the part of research and what is the part of education. And we had this project where we had 16 students doing the thesis, 15 a master thesis, 1 bachelor student, and 11 of them were VHL students, and the others from the other universities. So we created a complete network. So we are doing research, but at the same time we are bringing in all our education, our students. And this has been, for me, the most successful project so far, because we had so many students involved in serious end products, and we had so many partners with follow-up projects like Simon Omondi and the whole group behind him. So there is not, for me, a strict, let's say, balance, like I will do 50% research and 25% teaching and 25% something else. I would like to combine all these things and integrate as much as possible. So in our research agenda, this is also our objective. I hope I responded to your question.
Yeah. Thanks.
Oh, yes, certainly. That's a very, very clear vision and very inspiring. Thank you.
Then we go to the last reflection from Peter ten Hoeve. I really hope you could also give a few words. Has Robert enough focus? And it's also your own words, but maybe you could get that with you in your few words you have mentioned to Robert.
I would say, who am I to talk to a professor like that? First of all, it was a very clear presentation. I have 2 questions, Robert. You let's see a graph of different countries, and the Netherlands were the one with the highest amount of emission of nitrogen in the air. But we are also the country with the most cows on the field. We have 11 million kilograms of milk in Holland, and in Germany we have the double, 22 million of kilograms, but it's 8 times bigger. Is that graph therefore corrected? And another thing, what you said, is you would look after the emission of CO2 or methane and the emission of nitrogen. But there is also a real connection between them in the photosynthesis. If you have more nitrogen on your field, grass grows more and they get more CO2 out of the air. So there is also a good relation, because we always talk about emissions, but agriculture has another thing. They get also emissions out of the air because they have fields. And the fields need CO2. We put 400 kilograms or 350 kilograms nitrogen on a hectare, but we get out 35,000 kilograms of grass or maize, because of the fields, the plants eat CO2. Can you say something about that?
Well, the first question was about the graph, and I think you were referring to the ones with all the dots of the countries, huh?
No, it's a graph with the bars.
Oh,
Maybe Simon can show it.
This one. Yeah, these were the you were talking about. Yeah, okay. So your question is about this one. Huh? Actually, this is a report from TNO. That's not my research. That is TNO. Eh? But what was your question then related to this?
There is a lot of emission in the air.
Yeah.
But we have also a lot of milk and cows.
Yeah, yeah. So here you come to the correct, and that is the.
And my question was, is that corrected for that?
Oh, I don't know whether it's corrected for that, but I'm sure it is. But here you bring actually a key point, a key discussion point, because if we really want to reduce nitrogen, one of the options can be, and that's in we have it also on the political agenda. One option can be: should we reduce the number of animals? Yeah, it will have a direct effect on let's say the emissions. I really believe that we have to follow all routes that we can, because this problem is so big that we should not follow one route but try everything that we can. And I would be I refer to this this report of the Netherlands Advisory Council with all these different strategies, and I think we should follow what we can. So there is a whole discussion about farmers. If they if they stop farming, it will let's say have a positive effect on the environment, or it will not harm the environment. Yeah, if the farmer is himself or herself willing to do that and happy with that, we should not stop them. And but of course it will affect the sector as a whole in terms of economics. The whole sector, we are making a lot of money. That is also why we are not really fast in moving and taking actions. So I think we should also discuss this. So open up our point. So my plea will be, if I think about the Netherlands in the future, do we really have to maintain all these animals that we have today? Do we really have to maintain the export levels that we have today? I don't think so. I think we have to really reconsider and see what is feasible considering our environmental situation. Now the other question is also very interesting. I don't know exactly the detailed process you are referring to, but what I do know is that the whole issue of greenhouse gas emissions and the nitrogen emissions, that they are, in the Netherlands at least, they are really interacting with each other. So it is possible that you take an action that will result in less greenhouse gas emissions, but that will then increase the nitrogen emissions, or the other way around. And I know that there is a lot of research ongoing specifically about this. And an example is the whole issue of maize. Should we feed maize, yes or no, to our dairy cattle? Because maize will influence it to the left side, and more maize, and less maize will, or no maize will influence it to the other side. So we have these contradicting practices, and we have to, but also we are in the process, and that is, I would say, there's a lot of energy and budgets going towards research, trying to find practices that are bringing down both, but it's a big challenge. I think we should do that, but we should also not forget that we need a bigger thing than that, and then we are talking about reconsidering what we can handle in the future. Thank you.
Clear answer. Maybe you could stay here at this moment, Robert. Maybe there is also a question from online from Marco. Are there questions?
Yeah, no.
I'm not linked to the online group, so.
We will, any questions online, you can please, and then I should make something clear that I forgot to do. If you have questions online, you can always put them online and I will address them later. At this moment, you are streaming through YouTube, so you cannot interact with us, but you can leave your message to me. And for the people in this audience, I forgot, when you took your seat, you found a postcard. And actually, this is my invitation to you to write something on that postcard, like, oh, this was nice, or this was wrong, and I don't want to see you again, or I want to meet with you for a new project.
Okay. It's clear. Thanks a lot. Then we go to the official inauguration of Robert Baas, and we had a beautiful discussion about carbon footprints. I think we must go to the environmental footprint. I don't know what is the environmental footprint. It's a combination of carbon and nitrogen, etc., etc. I think there is a lot of things to do for Robert Baas, and now I give the word to Jan van Iersel for the official inauguration of Robert, and the floor is yours, Jan.
Robert, you can take a seat for a little while. Yep. I hope you can hold on for a couple of minutes. I will say something to Robert and to you all. And this will be a real official part of this afternoon. Dear Robert, dear all of you, dear people at home, on behalf of the Executive Board of Van Hall Arestein, University of Applied Science, I'm honored to inaugurate Robert Baas as a new professor of applied science in climate smart dairy value change in our institute. This professorship can only be in operation because of our close cooperation with the dairy campus. Also, the province, the local government, and SNN must be mentioned here as important players. Because of the close contacts between these parties, there arises a natural cooperation between VHL and the dairy campus. VHL is situated in two cities, Velp, Arnhem, and Leeuwarden. But we work close together, especially when it comes to research. VHL is in a phase of finishing its new strategic plan for the coming 4 to 6 years. In line with this new strategic plan, we are planning some new research groups. In the heart, and you mentioned it already, Robert, in the heart of the new strategic plan are 4 important transitions where we want to play a role. I mention only 2 of them, and that are the climate transition and the transition to a future-proof agriculture. Well, Robert, we can say that your professorship will be in the middle of these 2 transitions. And it will be of no surprise that also counts for the dairy campus. Robert, on our campus, in combination with the dairy campus site, you will be part of a larger and strong group of professors of applied science. In this group, we as Executive Board think and know that you are more than welcome. We also believe that you are going to play an important role in as well research as education in the team's climate smart dairy value change. And that you will help our University of Applied Science to deliver the transition experts which we want to deliver to society. Dear Robert, dear attendants, the Executive Board is convinced that by the appointment of Robert Baas as Professor of Applied Science of Climate Smart Dairy Value Change at the University of Applied Science VHL, as well its research as its education, will get a more than positive impulse in the direction of the goals of the institution. From this place, I declare you, Robert Baas, from now on, as an official member of our community of professors of applied science. May I congratulate you by this moment from now. Robert, in these occasions, there is of course a present, and probably I can ask you now to come here. We asked an artist to make a gift in the form of a work of art. A work of art that symbolizes your role as a professor of applied science and the assignment that is associated with it. That artist is Fransje Povel. After years of working in Africa, and this is not, yeah, this is quite good in this relation which you are doing. After years of working in Africa in education and in development work, she started working as an artist. She made a bronze statue for our inauguration ceremony. Where is it? I don't know, is there, no. I will give it to you now and tell something about it. Probably you can show it a little bit to the audience. The order says about this statue, birds, you see, it's a bird, fascinate me. They are so free and so mobile. And even though they are small, everything in the bird is in place. Birds have their own qualities and features, just like humans. That's why they so often are used as a symbol for a certain human trait. And this lecture shade is based on a marabout. It's a marabout. He has put on a jacket. I hope you see it. It's a practical jacket for a professor like you. He's put on a jacket with a full color to set off his speech, which he wrote down with his Greek pen. You see the pen? Yeah, you have to look very close. And it has thick books under his arms. Do you see the books? Yeah. Under his arm, in which he will display the knowledge of the professorship. Robert, I would like to offer you this marabout as a gift and as a symbol of the knowledge you develop together with others. And with your contribution, we hope, to a sustainable world as well. Robert, this is the end of the official part. May I congratulate you from now on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And of course, the flowers. Yes, I didn't know if you were there. Sorry. I thought, well, of course you get this one as well. Thank you very much. This is mine. Yeah, sure.
We have also a few presents for our speakers and the reflectors. We will give it to you when we are going to have a drink. At this moment, yeah, this was the final part. We have a few drinks and a few bites. Follow. Yeah, we go to. I think there is someone who wants to say.
Yeah, just one thing to add, and Robert didn't mention, so I thought I'd just interrupt. I'm sorry. We have made some yogurts from the milk of Dairy Campus, and we process it in the FACT in our at the University of Applied Sciences. So we'll take it out of the fridge, and please have a taste and let us know what you think of it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Robert, congrats.